We're just still investigating this case involving Patricia Harrison. This started out as a missing endangered person case and has, progressed as of this moment into a homicide investigation. We received information in the beginning stages of the investigation that Patricia Danna-Harrison went missing December 19th, 2013, after she had returned home from a Christmas party. Approximately 2 days later, her son, Al Geary, reported her missing to the Sebastian Police Department, as well as the following day, on the 22nd of December, her best friend, Vivian, who she went to the Christmas party with the night she disappeared, also reported her missing with the Sebastian Police Department. Since that point, we've been actively handling this as a missing person investigation. We were very concerned because Patricia had numerous health issues. We weren't sure at the time if she was in any type of danger or had wandered off from the home. We began to gather information and asked the public for help and canvassing neighborhoods, conducting grid searches and whatnot. We were unable to find Patricia at that time. Based on some inconsistencies in Al Geary's statements as to how his mother could have disappeared from inside of their residence, I asked Al Geary if he would consent to come to the station for an interview and a computer voice stress analyzer test, which is a truth verification test, which he agreed to. That was on December 26th. When he came, he took the test. He showed deception on a couple questions on that test. I actually called him out on it and asked him why he showed deception on those two specific questions, and he really couldn't provide an answer. He said he didn't know why, and said that he had nothing to do with the disappearance of his mother. At that point, Mr. Geary went home for the night, and approximately 4 days later, I made contact with Mr. Geary on the phone, which was Sunday, December 29th, and asked him if I could come by the residence and collect his mom's toothbrush and hairbrush for a DNA standard, at which time he agreed to. He said, what time were you considering coming by? I said 3 p.m. would work for me. He said, okay, I'll be waiting out in front of the house for you. I'll see you at 3 o'clock to collect those items. Upon arrival at the house at 3 p.m., there was no answer at the door. I knocked on all the windows, called Mr. Geary's cell phone. The garage door was open. Mr. Geary's truck was backed up in the driveway. I, at that point, thought something was definitely wrong. I continued to call his cell phone with no answer. At that point, we made entry into the home. The door was unlocked through the garage laundry room area, and we found Mr. Geary deceased in his bedroom from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. At that point, we continued our missing person investigation, and at that point had to have other detectives come in to work the suicide part of that. We searched for a note, couldn't find a note from Mr. Geary as to maybe what his thoughts were prior to taking his life. At that point, we continued with our investigation, processing evidence from the home, forensics on the vehicle, a couple of canoes that were in the yard. Patricia's vehicle also was taken, and we'll be doing forensics on that. That's an ongoing process. We may not have the results for another week on that. So on a daily basis, we continue to search for Patricia, put her bulletin out to the media, continue to take Crime Stopper tips and follow up with that, interview people, as well as Al Geary's live-in girlfriend, Liz Ranahan. We spoke to her several times. She was unable to provide us with any information as to where Patricia could be. We did call out a cadaver dog with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office and began a search from inside the home out into some other specified areas in the neighborhood, bodies of water, canals, preserve areas, and our search was met with negative results. We were unable to find any sign of Patricia. Yesterday, January 4th, I received a call from the Jupiter Police Department detectives stating that they had received a 911 call about a possible body that had washed up on the beach. They weren't sure what the gender was of the body or the condition, So they said that they were taking it to the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's office to be, possible identification made. At that point, I went down to Palm Beach County and met with the medical examiner. They scheduled the autopsy for today at 9 a.m., which I went back down to Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's office this morning at 9 a.m. The autopsy was completed by the medical examiner down there, and it was determined based on comparing medical history, past medical history from Patricia Harrison, that it indeed was Patricia Harrison. The medical examiner did make that 100% positive identification that it was her. At that point, and based on what the medical examiner found as far as some non-specific injuries, we deem this to be a homicide. So at this point, it's crossed over the threshold from being a missing endangered person investigation to a homicide investigation, and we still have a lot of work to do. So,
Can you tell us how she was killed? Can you
Excuse
tell
me?
us how she was killed, the cause of death?
No, I don't want to release that right now and jeopardize the case, because I don't know if there's other people involved, and I don't want to put out too much information, but maybe at a later date.
Did Alfred Geary have anything to do with her death?
You know, he is considered a suspect at this point, based on his inconsistencies that he made to me, as well as waiting 48 hours to report his mother missing, as well as failing a lie detector test, basically, and not providing a logical explanation how his mother could have disappeared from her home.
What's the motive for, why would he have killed his mother? Any idea what the motive is at this point?
You know, I did ask him in the interview, when he came in to take the lie detector test, I asked him flat out, I said, Al, were you just tired of taking care of your mom? He was basically her caregiver over the last 18 months. I said, were you just tired of taking care of her, dealing with her health issues? And he admitted that he was. So,
Do you believe that was a strong motive for, I mean, was...
it could, that's a possibility. We have not ruled out.
What were the inconsistencies in the stress test?
The inconsistencies in the test itself?
Yes. You said you had called him out on inconsistencies.
The inconsistencies in his statements as to, you know, how, when, and why his mother went missing. The two specific questions, do you know where your mother is right now?
Yes.
And do you have any knowledge of her disappearance?
And he gave different answers?
He said no to both of those questions, but showed deception.
I see.
So,
We know that Alfred Geary was a boat captain, I believe. The boat tarp that Patricia was wrapped in, could that have been a tarp for his boat? Is that something you're looking into?
at this moment, he doesn't have a boat. He had a boat previously, a little less than a year ago. It actually sunk in the Sebastian Inlet, so he no longer has a boat. He just had the two canoes on the side of the residence. So.
Is it possible that he may have used the canoes to paddle his mom out? I mean, how would he have gotten his mother out to the ocean at this point, do you know?
That we're still unsure about that. He did have access to various boats because he was a boat detailer down in the Stewart area.
What was the name of the company where he worked?
He was actually self-employed. He would kind of hustle to ask people, you know, hey, would you like me to work on your boat and whatnot.
Okay.
So,
Have you been able to get a hold of any of the people that he had detailed their boats to see if those boats possibly might have been used, you know, to transport her?
we're still in the process of that, of tracking down every possible boat that he would have had access to.
And what can you tell us about relatives? You notified next of kin. What other relatives does she have? Does she have any children, brothers, sisters?
She has, as far as I know, one brother, one younger brother. His name is Richard Danna. He lives in Rhode Island. He's been notified and is making arrangements to come to Florida to take care of the funeral and whatnot. Other than that, she does have nieces and nephews and cousins in the Massachusetts, Boston area.
At this point, is the girlfriend becoming a suspect? Does she seem to know of anything he might have done that morning?
At this point, she is not a suspect. She's been very cooperative from day one. She's spoken to us several times. We have no indication that she was involved with how Patricia went missing.
And she was living at the home with them as well?
Yes,
Three
she
of them
was.
were living there?
Yes.
Okay. And can you just tell us what the reaction from her other relatives, her brother and her nieces and nephews were when you notified them today, I guess, that you had found her body?
Yes, at first I notified a lot of the family members about Al Geary's suicide. They were pretty distraught over that, and they didn't know what was going on down here, and they wanted me to fill them in on details of the case. I went over a few things with them, and then now that a positive ID was made on Patricia, they're just devastated. They don't know what to think at this point. And when they get to Florida, they said they'll call me and meet up with me, and we can talk, and I'll go over some of the things in the case with them. So,
Any idea when they'll be arriving?
in the next few days is the only answer I got from them.
And did you get a sense from them as to, I mean, had they been speaking to Al Geary? Had they, were they aware of how he had been feeling about taking care of his mother or anything? Were they surprised that he may be involved in her death?
Yeah, very surprised that he may be involved. They really didn't speak often, maybe a couple times a year. So it was just a long distance relationship where they never spoke on a weekly basis or monthly basis or anything like that. So just mostly on holidays.
Are there any other suspects besides Al Geary at this point?
At this point, no.
Have you been in touch with her ex-husband? How has he been reacting to this news today?
Yeah, I have not notified him yet
Okay.
of Patricia's identification and death. So
What's the next step?
the next step is to continue this as a homicide investigation, make sure we do a thorough job, and make sure the forensics get followed through on as far as the vehicles, items of evidence that came out of the residence, the canoes, Patricia's vehicle as well. Just following up on forensics, bank record subpoenas, cell phone subpoenas. We're still getting Crime Stoppers tips. Actually, we got a few today. Still need to follow up with some people and go out and talk with them and gather more information and just treat it like any other homicide. Try to find evidence of how this happened to Patricia and go from there. So,
Can you tell us the condition of the body and where the body was found? Was it in the shore of the water? Was it on the beach?
basically right on the shoreline of the beach.
Okay.
It was wrapped in some type of green nylon tarp or boat cover, if you want to call it. And on the outside of that boat cover was some ropes that were knotted, and there were 3 small anchors attached to those ropes.
For that
Small
body to-
anchors that would be used for a john boat, not a...
Maybe a john boat or a
Okay.
kayak. Right.
Any idea as to where the body was dumped from? Obviously, with the current going north, do you assume it's somewhere pretty far south, or?
It's hard to tell. I'm not sure on the specifics of how the current moves this time of year, so I really don't know. So I'll have to research that though.
Was it a particular beach where the body was found?
I'm not sure the name of the beach. I think it was just an unincorporated area from what I know.
And some beach walkers yesterday?
2 beach walkers around approximately 6:30 a.m. yesterday morning
Okay.
is when they located it.
Were they part of a cleanup, beach cleanup, I heard? Do you know if that's true?
I'm not sure on the specifics of that. I only know 2 individuals were walking down the beach and located the body.
So the body was in a fairly advanced, or normal state of decomposition, I'm guessing? If
Slight
they-
to moderate stages of decomposition, which would, the temperature of the water would affect that. If the water was a lot warmer, it would, increase the stages of decomposition, but if the water was cooler, it would slow it down.
Mhm.
Do you know how long he'd been caring for his mother?
Off and on for the last 2 or 3 years, but consecutively for the last 18 months.
Based on the decomposition, how long was the body in the water?
We're not sure on that, actually. The medical examiner is still conducting her investigation, but I can get those specifics down the road.
You said you can't release the cause of death. I mean, did it appear to be some sort of trauma, or would it have been more consistent with like the gunshot wound, or?
Numerous injuries consistent with trauma, yes.
Does it appear that he shot her or that she died some other way?
At this point, there's no sign of a gunshot wound. I can tell you that.
Okay. I mean, I know we're speculating that he probably is, the person responsible for her death, but I mean, can you say definitively at this time that he is the person who killed Patricia Harrison?
No, I cannot. He's just a suspect at this point. We're going to work our investigation and gather as much evidence as possible. And if he did do this, I hope that we'll find out. So.
What were the injuries on her body that you said the medical examiner was able to identify her through?
Yeah, they're non-specific injuries. I'd rather not release that at this moment in time. I don't want to jeopardize my investigation. We still have a lot of people to talk to, and we don't know if if Al did do this, was someone else involved with him, so.
Are you asking about her past medical history and how she was identified?
Yeah, Detective Finnegan mentioned that he had been identified, that she had been identified through some non-specific injuries that her medical.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, the medical
I think
history
you
said she was.
misunderstood.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't understand you, I'm sorry about
Her
that.
past medical history, you said that she was identified through that. Can you
Yeah, there's a
explain
number
that
of
a little
ways the
bit?
medical examiner can identify a body, looking for tattoos and scars, birthmarks and whatnot. But based on Patricia's medical history, she was able to make the identification. So.
She had a knee replacement or a hip replacement?
She did have a couple knee replacements and some other previous surgeries.
Can you give us any other insight from your interview with Al Geary as to, what his state of mind was, or, did you get a feeling during the interview that he...
When first meeting with him, he, mentally, he seemed very unstable as far as he seemed confused and not sure where his mother could be. He repeatedly said that over and over again. He said he wasn't sleeping well and pacing the floor, just had no answer as to how his mother could have disappeared from inside the residence. I repeatedly asked him, he said the first day she went missing, he said, I thought she was out shopping with her friends. I immediately called him out. I said, Al, your mom's car's in the garage, her purse is here with her credit cards, her ID, her keys. Most women don't go out of the house without their purse and go shopping. And he didn't have an answer for that.
Was she able to walk on her? He was taking care of her, so what was the
Yes,
nature of her?
she had many
disability?
canes. She did use a cane and a couple different walkers. Mostly when she would go out, the night of the Christmas party, she took a cane with her.
So you waited 48 hours to report a missing person. What's normal to report a missing person?
Normally with his mother's medical conditions that she had, it would lead me to believe that any normal person would report her missing right away. If you woke up the next morning and realized your mom's not in the house after she had supposedly returned home from a party the night before, and she's not there, her car's in the driveway or in the garage, and the keys are there with her purse, and knowing her medical condition that she was on medications as well, lead me to believe that a normal person would have called immediately. So,
When did you first go to the house?
I first went to the house Christmas morning.
And the media was notified the following day?
I believe it was the following day.
And that's when, the following day is when he had the lie detector test?
Yes.
Okay.
With your main suspect, I guess deceased, how do you go about determining, that whether he was indeed responsible for her death, or, what do you?
That may be revealed in the forensic examinations of all the items that were collected from the beach that day that Patricia's body was covered up in. We have to forensically examine, it's a very tedious process, every article that we collected, as well as items from the residence, her vehicle, Al Geary's vehicle, and that could take some time, but that may reveal some kind of result.
I think you definitely want to rule out that there is anybody else as well. That's what he was trying to, the integrity and investigation will determine that.
What were the other, you mentioned the two questions that he was deceptive on. One of them was about her going out shopping, or specifically, what were the two questions?
Do you have any knowledge about how your mother went missing?
And his answer again was?
No. And the other one was, do you know where your mother is right now?
And he said no.
He said no.
And he was deceptive on both of those?
Yes, he was.
Was there anything in particular in the earlier interviews with him that led you to go to his house on Christmas morning? Was it a gut feeling? that you needed to go check the house, you need to check the
It-
car?
It was a gut feeling, I'll be honest with you, it was a gut feeling. I
Because-
just felt that something wasn't right. The story wasn't adding up. When speaking to the police officers that first responded out there, they described Al's demeanor as really nonchalant. He really didn't seem too concerned, and told them that, she'll come home.
And this was on the 21st, when he called to report to the police did go in the house.
Yes,
take their
the 20
report.
The 21st, yeah. And the
Okay.
22nd, the girlfriend called and made a police report as well. She was
Okay.
very alarmed that Patricia was not answering her phone. It went to voicemail several times.
Have you found that phone?
No, we have not found her phone.
Do you have a tape recording of her call?
Of her call?
Her call, you said she immediately reported it.
Oh, to the police department? I'm sure that,
The girlfriend?
Yeah, can we get that?
I believe.
yeah, that'll probably be available tomorrow when the dispatch supervisor's here.
Who
Just
should
make a
we call
request.
about that tomorrow?
Pardon me?
Who should we call about that tomorrow?
You gonna be in tomorrow?
I'll be available tomorrow.
Yeah.
Will it be on the, even if it's the admin line?
Yeah, just
Still be
get with,
recorded?
yeah.
Okay.
This has been a very long past couple of weeks for you.
Yes, it has.
What's going through your mind right now? I mean, that you've got to be exhausted by this, and also, you had been holding out hope, at least here.
I was trying to stay positive that Patricia would, turn up alive, and I'm just, real upset that the fact that she was found deceased, and the fact that I wish that Al would have left some type of note with his feelings on paper, as to what he was thinking prior to taking his life.